So picture this. You're watching the news or you're scrolling through your X feed on a quiet Saturday evening, and you're half expecting the usual flood of triumphant legacy media headlines declaring that tens of millions of outraged Americans have taken to the streets and finally brought down the Trump administration in a glorious, nonviolent uprising of democracy. I mean, that's been the breathless promise all week, hasn't it? Thousands upon thousands of No Kings events erupting throughout the entire nation, the biggest protest in modern American history. But then the actual footage starts coming in, and instead of a glorious revolution, instead of a massive wave of fired up Americans demanding justice, you see geriatric white liberals waving pre-printed signs, Antifa masks, and literal communist flags with a hammer and sickle, and even someone spray painting "kill your local ICE agent" on a federal building. And you suddenly realize this isn't a movement. This is a meltdown. Welcome to the spectacular, chaotic, self-defeating disaster that was No Kings 3.0. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, I want to invite you into something deeper than just this channel. Every Monday night, I go live with our members to tackle the headlines through the lens of faith, family, and freedom. This is your exclusive space to ask your questions, get direct answers from me, and find a community that stands right alongside with you. Scan the QR code and join the Turley Troublemakers. And I'll see you tonight live online at 7 p.m. I can't wait. This weekend, the world watched in abject horror the far left desperately trying for the third time to stage a massive, unified, totally organic, of course, non-astroturfed, non-King's Day throughout the nation. Now, what organizers promised would be a tectonic shift in American politics, a mobilization of millions across 3,300 events in all 50 states, it turned into what can only be described as the political equivalent of a far-left frat party that ended up with police being called. In L.A., No Kings leftists began smashing up cement blocks and putting them in their pockets before moving towards DHS federal agents. Protesters were assaulting federal law enforcement officers with literal concrete blocks. In fact, you even had some nut spray paint "kill your local ICE agent" on a federal building. And as a result, there were dozens of arrests. These were scenes from Portland, if you can believe it. Law enforcement had a zero-tolerance policy for violence, and they cracked down hard on these protesters, which was a pattern repeated in cities all across the country. Law enforcement wasn't going to tolerate nonsense. Like I said earlier, this isn't a movement. It's a meltdown. It's a collective meltdown by some of the most neurotic people on the planet, and we're going to see exactly why in a moment. Here's probably my favorite photo of the day. Here's a liberal white woman who probably lives alone with her cats. And look at her sign. My dog, well, sorry, I stand corrected. She lives alone with her dog. My dog is smarter than Trump. And the "than" is spelled T-H-E-N. Must be someone who graduated from the Laring Center in Minneapolis. This is the Democrat Party. This is the modern day Democrat Party. And no one pointed that out better than the great Scott Jennings.
These No Kings rallies actually look pretty representative to me of the Democratic coalition. I saw people flying the hammer and sickle in New York City. I saw Hezbollah flags. I saw Hamas flags. I saw Palestinian flags. I saw trans signs. I see weirdo liberal boomers out there. This is pretty representative of the Democratic coalition, and that's who funds it as well, by the way. And so I think if America looks at this and says, what do the two parties stand for? They got it at the No Kings rally.
No, I think if you Americans were out there, Republicans.
You like hammer and sickle? You like hammer and sickle flag?
That's not what that No King stood for.
They had a bunch
you know
of them.
that, and that is
They come from somewhere.
All right, well, No King's rally?
I did. I went to 6, and I'll tell you, there's so much excitement.
6?
There's so much energy. Yeah,
That's a lot of free speech.
I'll get you a T-shirt. You should come.
That's a lot of free speech for a country with a king.
That's a lot of free speech, and I'll tell you, there's so.
Bingo. Scott nailed it. Bingo. There's a whole lot of free speech going on in a nation ruled by a dictatorial king, ain't there? One X account put it this way: 9 million attended the No Kings protest against President Trump. No protesters were killed. Millions of Iranians protested the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime. Over 30,000 were killed. They were shot by snipers. They were hanged from cranes. Do you see the difference? You see, and 9 million, I think, is being a bit generous. A number of people who live in blue states have pointed out that the numbers were down significantly from the past 2 No Kings rallies. But regardless, more and more people are recognizing the absurd performative contradiction inherent in these rallies, right? Most particularly the ones in New York City, flying the flag of a bona fide tyrannical regime responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions worldwide. I mean, the very fact that these people could protest so freely on the streets completely contradicts what they claim to be protesting, right? They're like trying to push the bus they're trying to ride on. It's like they're saying we can't express ourselves with words. It's a performative contradiction. They're refuting what they're claiming by the act of claiming it. I love this. Someone flew a banner in the sky above the LA No Kings rally that said, "Not a king, he's your daddy." I love it. But all of this does raise a question, right? I mean, with all the performative contradictory antics, what on earth is really going on here? Right? Besides the Soros-funded NGOs, what's really driving these affluent white boomers into performing this kind of absurdity? One New York psychologist has a fascinating insight into this, and it's going to absolutely blow you away. But first, did you know they're saying the next pandemic is already here? I kid you not, but this time it's being called an antimicrobial resistance. Now, here's what's really going on here. What started as a life-saving medical discovery is turned into routine overuse. Antibiotics are now overly prescribed in medicine, and every time you take them, you're disrupting your gut microbiome. Now, once that balance is lost, immunity weakens, inflammation rises, metabolism shifts, and chronic disease begins to follow things like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. So maybe the question isn't how we kill stronger bacteria. Maybe it's how we rebuild our gut health. And the most powerful way to rebuild it is with a centuries-old fermented food, kimchi. In fact, studies reveal kimchi has powerful immune-supporting effects, helping your body shut down illnesses before they even have the chance to start. And that's because fermentation produces beneficial probiotic bacteria that help restore balance in the gut microbiome and support immune function. Kimchi is also been shown to be an antimicrobial, meaning it eliminates funguses like candida, nasty parasites, and defends against dangerous viruses. And since 70-80% of your immune system lives in your gut, strengthening the microbiome helps strengthen your body's overall defenses. So when your gut microbiome is thriving, your whole immune system becomes more resilient. But here's the challenge. Most people aren't eating kimchi consistently enough to get these benefits. They don't like the taste, they don't like the smell, or the hassle that comes with making it fresh. That's why Brightcore created Kimchi One. I take Kimchi One every single day, and I absolutely love it. Over 900 plus strains of beneficial bacteria that deliver all the benefits of real kimchi in convenient capsules. No taste, no smell, no GMO, and 100% made right here in the USA. Today you can try Kimchi One by clicking the link below for 25% off your entire order, or for the best deal available, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off plus free shipping. Give them a call right now at 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233. A New York psychotherapist named Jonathan Alpert, who wrote an op-ed critically diagnosing the last No Kings rally several months back. He reappeared this weekend and gave a pretty fascinating assessment of the whole ordeal. He does indeed confirm that many of these participants in these rallies are indeed suffering from neurosis. The people who came out, many of them elderly, many of them retired, they admitted on camera that they couldn't enjoy a vacation. They couldn't enjoy time with their family or their loved ones, all because of their psychotic fixation with Donald Trump. And so the psychologists argued that these people are not protesting, they're medicating. Isn't that interesting? They're not protesting, they're medicating. They're using a political rally the way an addict uses a substance for temporary relief, for the dopamine hit of collective grievance, for the illusion of doing something meaningful while their movement quietly collapses all around them. And for me, what was most fascinating in this analysis is that the psychologists diagnosed politics as a form of religion for these protesters, right? Politics has become the new religion of the radical left. And in many respects, I have to say, there it is. Right there. There is this whole thing in a nutshell, right? When you strip out the transcendent, when you secularize everything, as the modern world attempted to do over the last century, when you privatize the churches, pushing them out of the public square itself becomes sacred. Government becomes your new church. Politics becomes your new evangelistic religion. And now the political enemy becomes demonic. And your protests become a revival meeting. Except instead of hope and transformation and grace, you're basically left with good old-fashioned pagan calls for human sacrifice. I mean, there's no grace in this leftist religion. There's no forgiveness. There's only blood guilt. If you're a political enemy, you need to be destroyed. You need to be sacrificed, and the land needs to be purged of you. That's why these protests continue to increasingly descend into violence, because violence is precisely what this bizarre hyper-pagan religion requires. And you'll notice, because this is a cult, it only attracts particular kinds of people. The demographics, in the end, exposes this meltdown for what it really is. Like Scott Jennings said earlier, this matters enormously for understanding where the Democratic Party is right now. Everywhere you looked across the country this weekend, you saw a sea of overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly older, overwhelmingly female, affluent liberals. Gen Z, the generation the Democrats have been counting on to save them, to give them an unassailable electoral majority for the rest of the century, was nowhere to be found. Latinos, the other demographic on which Democrats have built their entire future projections, also nowhere to be found. These two demographics in particular, that the Democrat Party has staked everything on, had literally zero interest in this feeble political stunt. And the crowd that did show up, interestingly, they represented what social psychologists call symbolic management of protest. In other words, nobody's putting their livelihood at risk. Nobody's facing real consequences for their participation, the shutdown of what's called life choices. Nobody's sacrificing anything to do this. Just comfortable, affluent, white, elder liberals performing resistance to maintain their self-image as progressive activists while staying safely inside their comfortable liberal bubble. Gang, this is why the right is winning. The left has gone demonstrably performative and psychotic, while the right, like a muscle that's been built through resistance, is fit. It's literally physically fit, flourishing in faith and family, having children while liberals are not, building thriving red states while blue states languish under the weight of their own failed policies. Trump won the popular vote. He's implementing exactly the policies he campaigned on democratically. And what we saw over the weekend is a microcosm of the sad dying state of the Democrat Party. No Kings 3.0 wasn't just a tactical failure. It was a preview of a political movement in its final, desperate phase, mistaking noise for influence and performance for power. The future of American politics will not be written by aging liberals hurling concrete blocks at federal agents in downtown Los Angeles. It's going to be written by the next generation, the generation that values faith, family, and genuine results over manufactured outrage and political cosplay. As Saturday's events made unmistakably clear, there's a vast difference between authentic political resistance, like the MAGA movement that genuinely fought for real Americans at real cost, and expensive, Soros-funded performative theater. The former builds lasting civilizational change. The latter provides temporary emotional satisfaction while accelerating political irrelevance. One humiliating, self-defeating, concrete block-throwing demonstration at a time. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless.